Welcome back. Kilmacud Crokes yesterday, of course, crowned All-Ireland Club Football champions following their 111 to 1-9 victory over Glen of County Derry at Croke Park. The aftermath of that game has been dominated by the talk of 16 or perhaps even 17, depending on how you're counting them, Kilmacud players on the pitch defending that final attack from Glen, which came via a 45. One man who's been fairly vociferous in his views towards how things should proceed from that point on is Derry's own Joe Brolly. Joe, welcome back to the show.
How you doing?
Not too bad, thank you very much. You've been very vocal today in how you think things should proceed from an administrative point of view, from the point of view of this last play of the game. How do you see things going forward from here?
Well, I think the GAA's reputation is at stake. This isn't a private matter between Waddy Graham's and Kilmacud. This is about the integrity of the game itself. And Part 1, which is where Rule 644 is about the fundamental ground rules of the GAA, and one of those is that 15 players play against 15. And Rule 644 really only gives three options. Well, it only gives three options. Once it's proved that there's been a breach, then the GAA can either fine, order forfeiture, or a replay. And the rule specifically says that the decision that they make depends on the circumstances. So depending on the circumstances. So I think Paul Mannion was the 17th man, but that was a technical breach. So that would be a fine. I think it's implicit in the rules.
He's close to the sideline essentially. And
that's neither here. That's not affecting the game. I mean, it would not be within the spirit of the game to order a replay because Paul Mannion had infringed over the sideline. That's like a water boy infringing.
Yeah.
Then you've got a situation like this one, which is where a player who's substituted, instead of going off, goes to the goal line, takes up a defensive position in the centre of the goal line to defend the last critical play. Don't forget that Glen had almost scored a goal from the previous play whenever Conor Glass pulled on it in the ground and the keeper made a save. And on that last play, in fact, Dugan, the Maharav fullback, he tried to flick the ball on, missed it by a whisker. Now, if he had flicked it on, it would have gone goalwards and you would have been in the extraordinary situation where it may well have been Dara Mullen who saved it. I mean, you can see him coming out with the ball, doing a 1-2, kicking it in the air. The referee blows the whistle. And so it's quite clearly a flagrant breach of the rule. This is a player who's continuing to take part in the game after he has been substituted. It's nothing to do with the referee or the linesman. This is the responsibility in the rule is placed on the team itself. So it's not a technical breach. It's a flagrant breach. You have an extra man defending the last play. And it seems to me that the only honourable option is for the GAA to order a replay, and it's most disappointing to me. I think it's a total act of cowardice, of abdication of their responsibility to now say today they are not, because they have the power under Rule 644. Two ways that it operates is either on an objection from the club, and in this case it will be proven because it's accepted that the breach occurred. I mean, we could all see that. But the committee in charge can investigate it themselves, and they've said today, oh no, they're not going to do that. Which I am in disbelief about that.
Yeah,
there was the IRFU or FIFA, the replay would already be ordered. I dare say, and the general feeling in the north is if this had been the other way around, a replay would be ordered. But that's what's there's going to be all sorts of speculation out there caused by the GAA abdicating its responsibility, and people in the north are saying, look, this would never have happened if it was the other way around. Whether that's right or wrong, it's serious reputational damage to the GAA. Now Glen are in the terrible position of sort of having to make the objection. Then they would step out of the picture because the GAA then have only got three options because the objection is obviously proven. They had an extra player on the field at a critical point in the game. And I think then what would inevitably happen was that a replay would be ordered, but the GAA would amazingly have essentially washed their hands of it.
The piece, obviously, Colin Keys had this afternoon saying the GAA's put the ball back in Glen's court over the outcome of Sunday's football final, saying that Glen would have to make the approach to the GAA over this. To those who would say that essentially Darragh Mullen doesn't interfere with play, so therefore there isn't too much of a difference in the outcome of the game, what do you say to those people?
Well, but that's not the point of the rule. I mean, the point of the rule is to ensure that there's no breach of that cardinal principle that 15 play 15. He could easily have been the man who saved that last play if, in fact, Dugan had connected with his hand. But that's not the rule. He's clearly participating in the game as though he were still playing in the game, even though he's been substituted. It's therefore a flagrant breach. I mean, it's obvious that he's participating in the game. I mean, let's say, for example, that he had broken forward after he'd been substituted. He'd attacked forward and he'd been part of a two-man move. Didn't touch the ball, but Kilmacud had clinched it with a winning score. You could still say, well, look, he didn't actually touch the ball. That's not the point of this. These are one of the fundamental ground rules of the GAA.
In terms of the Glen approach to this, Malachy O'Rourke in the immediate aftermath of the game said that, he wouldn't necessarily be in favour of challenging that type of thing.
Malachy's not a Glen man. Malachy's an outside manager who could easily end up managing Kilmacud Crokes in a few years. It's not a matter for Malachy or for the Glen team, in my view.
No, that's what I was going to get to, Joe, is that Malachy O'Rourke said that he wouldn't be in favour of pursuing it. I think I don't want to paraphrase him too much, but essentially that was his line on it. Whereas the club chairman, said that it would be something that they'd look into. But there is a point there, and there is a lot of validity to what you say in that it should not be in either Kilmacud or Glen's hands to raise this thing. The GA have the responsibility to oversee the officiating of these matches, and whether it's the junior final last week, where there was a flurry of red cards towards late in the game, they have a duty to go and pursue the referee to have his point of view on that game. Similarly, they should be straight in contact with with all three match officials, and then subsequently to get the views of both clubs to have an informed, overarching view on this.
That's not relevant in relation to part one of the rules. Part two of the rules, that's the referee's province, and then the referee's overseen in relation to that. This part of the rules is different. Interestingly, Robbie Brennan, the Kilmacud manager, when he was playing for Dunboyne in 2005, they played a Meath Championship semi-final against Navan O'Mahony's, and Navan O'Mahony's, it seems to have been accepted, inadvertently played a fourth substitute during extra time. Dunboyne appealed that. Navan O'Mahony's were expelled from the championship, and Dunboyne went on to play in the county final. The substitute who'd been wrongly brought on didn't even touch the ball. But the point was that the integrity of the game has to be protected. So let me broaden this out slightly.
Okay.
Let's say this was Dublin versus Mayo 2017 epic final, or 2016. Both years Mayo lose by a point. Both years Mayo are besieging the Dubs with 2 or 3 minutes to go to try and get that equalising score. Let's say Dublin had made a substitution. The substitute didn't come off, and instead of coming off, went to the heart of the Dublin defence and participated in the defence of the Dublin goal. Well, there'd be an outcry in the global GAA community. The GAA would have already announced their inquiry, and I think probably by tonight or tomorrow morning at the latest, a replay would be ordered. What's the difference? Glen Maghera may be a very small parochial club in Derry with their sponsor. We were sort of talking about this morning. Their sponsor is the Spar Shop in Maghera. Kilmacud may be a sort of a GAA superpower. Their sponsor is a chain of private hospitals, a healthcare sort of conglomerate. Why should Glen Maghera be treated any differently than a powerful team that comes to Croke Park and infringes the rules in this way? And I think that this is in danger of, and I think it is already tainting Kilmacud's victory through no fault of their own. I mean, we don't know what the position is. The substitute clearly was substituted. There can be no doubt about that. He went and took his place on the line. For me, I don't think that it would be honourable to order forfeiture of the game unless you were able to show, for example, that this was a deliberate decision from the sideline. Look, stay on, tell them to stay on, tell them to get on that line for the last play. I think that the honourable course here is for the GAA to say, look, a blatant breach has taken place, and we'll order a replay. And I think that they will inevitably do that if Glen make the decision to send that email, because that's all they have to do here. They don't have to participate in this, and they won't be expected to participate in this. This will be a matter for the GAA then to operate its own rule.
Should the GAA not be showing more leadership in all this, though?
Well, obviously they should. I mean, it's an example of rank cowardice.
And if they defend themselves, and
it wouldn't happen if it was the Dubs. It wouldn't happen if it was a powerful county in Croke Park. It would already be dealt with. But here the thing is, look, tell you what, we'll throw this on to Glen Mahara. There's a bit of hassle around fixtures here. The National League's starting. You know, who really cares about Glen Mahara anyway? We'll put the pressure on them. We won't use our power under 644, and we'll hope that Mahara don't send us that email, because if they do, then we're going to have to act. And
like you're saying, if this was the Dubs and Mayo, that there would be holy war, and I, to a degree, I can see that. If this turns out to just be a fine for Kilmacud out of the back of this, what would your reaction be?
Well, look, I mean, I think it would establish a very dangerous precedent. It would mean that teams would say, look, we're in extra time here now. There's 2 or 3 minutes to go. We'll fire on subs. We'll instruct them. Look, don't find the substitute. Just run on, stay on. I'm sure if we have to take a fine, we'll take a fine. We can absorb that. It's a very dangerous precedent. It's corrosive to the rules of the game. And people say, like, what's the real point of the rules of the game then? And what is the point? If you can just say, well, look, 16 players can go on the field in an All-Ireland club final and defend the last play against 15 men, with one of them, with the 16th man, the guy who was supposed to be taken off, standing on the goal line. I mean, well, what might be?
Is there a precedent the other way, though, Joe?
More fundamental breach than that.
Joe, is there a precedent the other way, whereby if you're saying that this infringement warrants, obviously does warrant further investigation, a replay might be the outcome of that?
Why does it warrant further investigation?
Well,
it's clear what happened.
Well, my point is that they're clearly going to look into this, and they're going to have an outcome one way or the other from it.
They're not going to unless Glen lodge an objection.
And Glen, you would imagine, are going to lodge an objection, surely.
I mean, it's not a matter for me, but I think that it must be inevitable, because it's grossly unsporting and grossly unfair in the circumstances.
Okay, well, further down the line, can you see a point where, unless there is more formality brought into how substitutes are introduced or taken off the pitch, that this could work the other way, whereby teams could raise an objection to people being on the pitch, 16 players being on the pitch, 17 players, whoever it might be, being on the pitch, in a similar circumstance to the way Paul Mannion was yesterday? That he's over not interfering with the game, but they'll say, oh, well, he's on the pitch. There's a precedent set for like back in the club final when Kilmacud obviously had too many players there. Why did they have to be interfering with play? He didn't touch the ball.
I know, but I mean, this is why the rule gives discretion in relation to the penalty. It doesn't give discretion in relation to the offence having been committed, but it says that you can have a fine, forfeiture, or a replay depending on the circumstances. And so in Paul's situation, no one would suggest, well, look, this would be way over the top to go to the second offence. I mean, or to go to the second penalty. This will be comfortably dealt with by a fine. As I say, it's like an incursion by the water carrier when he hasn't been given permission by the fourth official.
When Charlie Redmond obviously didn't, make his way off after being sent off in the '95 final against Tyrone, should Tyrone have had a replay then?
I'm not sure what the rule was then. But I mean, I think a good example of the GAA protecting its integrity was whenever Offaly played Clare in the All-Ireland hurling semi-final, and the referee mistakenly played 3 minutes short of the regulation time. Okay, now the regulation time, the basic regulation time, is not within the discretion of the referee. It's like this matter. It's part one, and whenever it was discovered that he played 3 minutes short, Clare won the game, don't forget. They were on their way to the All-Ireland final. It's done and dusted, celebrating all the rest of it. A replay was ordered. Offaly won the replay and went on to win the All-Ireland hurling final that year. You know, the point being that the integrity of the GAA was protected. The GAA's reputation was protected. And so far as the GAA are concerned, in this matter, on a Part 1 matter, it's nothing to do with the individual teams. This is to do with the GAA protecting its own rules, protecting its own reputation, its own integrity. That's what I'm concerned about. I mean, Glen, Waddy Grahams have always been ferocious rivals with my club, Dungiven. You know, I'm not concerned individually with the Waddy Grahams situation. They had many chances to win the game. They should have gone on and win it, as far as I'm concerned. That's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in us becoming a sort of a laughingstock, the IRFU looking at us and saying, Jesus, it's fucking Wild West there, you know. And that's what it is at the moment. I am so disappointed that the GAA washed its hand of this today. Instead of saying, look, there's clearly been a breach. We're going to investigate this. You know, there are very limited options here. Clearly a fine isn't appropriate where a 16th man is on the field defending the critical last play in the game. Otherwise, what sort of a precedent are we setting? We set down a replay. We take it away from the Waddies. We take it away from Kilmacud Crokes. And we do the correct thing.
All right, we'll watch this one with interest. Joe Brolly, for now, thanks so much for taking time out to speak to us this afternoon, Stephen.
My great pleasure.
Cheers, Joe.